You're tuned into Auto Intelligence, live from Auto Trader, where data, tools, and your preferences sync to make your car shopping smooth.
They're searching inventory.
Oh, yeah.
They find what you need.
They're gonna find it.
You can make a budget for your wallet to help you succeed. Pricing's precise and true.
So true.
It's smarter car shopping.
Ooh.
Just for you.
Oh, it's just for you.
Ooh.
Find your next ride at autotrader.com. Powered by Auto Intelligence.
Saturday presents, in the red corner, the undisputed, undefeated Weed Whacker Guy. Champion of hurling grass and pollen everywhere. And in the blue corner, the challenger, extra strength Saturday. Eye drops that work all day to prevent the release of histamines that cause itchy allergy eyes. And the winner by knockout is Saturday. Saturday, bring it on.
Mint is still $15 a month for premium wireless. And if you haven't made the switch yet, here are 15 reasons why you should. 1, it's $15 a month. 2, seriously, it's $15 a month. 3, no big contracts. 4, I use it. 5, my mom uses it. Are you playing me off? That's what's happening, right? Okay, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, $15 per month equivalent required. New customer offer first 3 months only. Then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Disney's Lilo & Stitch has finally landed on Disney+. Now you can watch the global phenomenon at home with your Ohana.
Be good for 1 second.
Lilo & Stitch is verified hot on Rotten Tomatoes with an audience score of 93%.
Perfect.
Stitch is also cute and fluffy.
Disney's Lilo & Stitch, rated PG, now streaming on Disney+. And right now, you can get Disney+, Hulu, and all of ESPN with an incredible limited-time offer. Terms apply.
Tonight, turn down the noise of the day and focus on the rest with AGZ, the nightly drink for winding down and resting up. New from AG1. AGZ supports your body's natural sleep cycle with clinically studied key herbs, adaptogens, and minerals in amounts supported by research. And no melatonin, helping you wake feeling rested. Wind down, rest up with AGZ. Learn more at drinkagz.com.
Hello and welcome to episode 1, the premiere edition of the Saturday Morning Spread with your host, Mark Henry Jr., streaming this show for the very first time on the Eagles Pinpool Network. But if you follow the network, this is not the first time you've seen me on the network. I've done 203 episodes with Shane Haff over Chalk Talk, which is a part of the network and the podcast feed, and I'm excited to bring my personal show over here to do whatever I want, whenever I want, however I want. And here we are starting right here at 8 a.m. So we're going to rise and shine every Saturday at 8 a.m. If you checked out my last show, the Tough Cover Radio Show, and you're here checking this out, I can't thank you enough for following me along the way. And if you're new, I hope you hop on board and cash some bets with us, because we've been cashing bets for quite some time on the Tough Cover podcast and the Tough Cover Radio Show. And now right here on the Saturday Morning Spread. If you've followed my show before, you know I break down the whole college football and NFL slate and give you all of my picks with the details, with the stats, with my feelings, with my confidence level, and full transparency. And I'll tell you exactly how many units I'll be playing on it. I'm not someone who just tweets out their 40-1 parlay winner out at the end of the day. Every bet I make for the football weekend, I'll be giving out right here, 8 a.m. every Saturday. And that's another nice thing. I used to do this thing from 11 to 1. I'd miss all of college game day. I'd miss the start of the noon action. So I decided to bump it up and get this show and the picks out to the people as quickly as possible on Saturday morning. And another thing, this is not just a football show. I know this is the Eagles Pinpool Network. You see I've got the Eagles hat on here. Sadly, I've got the Notre Dame hoodie on. We'll get to that a little bit later. I'm a huge football guy. I've got NFL in my handle. Football is my number one thing. Absolutely. But this is a little bit of a variety show. And we're going to be talking more things than just football. We'll be talking all things NBA with great guests from that. All things college basketball with great guests from that. All things MLB when the time comes. especially with Red October around the corner. And that brings me to another point. We'll be bringing on my wacky crew of characters and friends that I have had on my show before, and some that I maybe have not been contractually allowed to have on my show before. But coming up at 9 a.m., we have a frequent tough cover guest who it only felt right to have on as the inaugural Saturday morning spread guest is our fearless leader at Eagles Pinpool, my Chalk Talk co-host, Shane Haff. We're going to be breaking down some week 2 action in the NFL. We're going to be touching on the Eagles game, obviously at 1 o'clock against the Los Angeles Rams, and all the other games that might have us excited, especially here for week 2 of the NFL. But week 3. What am I talking about? Week 2. We just broke down week 2 on Chalk Talk. We'll preview week 3 coming up in the NFL. Coming up on October 4th, the first day of the NLDS, we have my guy Jack Fritz coming on the show for the first time. Been a longtime friend of mine, longtime Twitter pal, but he was not allowed to come on the show before with some rules that are out there with radio stuff. So I'm extremely excited. One of the most exciting things about this is being able to have him on, especially on a special Phillies playoff day, which will be game 1 of the NLDS. Assuming all things go right and they clinch the bye, I think we're pretty darn close at this point. But we'll also have my guy Trilbro Dude on for sure once the slop starts to get going in the NBA. And of course, I hope to have a lot of my former guests on from the station, especially my guy Sean Bernard, my former co-host, who is the absolute man. Everybody should keep following him. Check out everything he does as well. My guys Luke, Beef, McClay, Tansy, Roy, Pacone, Sam, and plenty of others. Hopefully we can get some of my Barstool friends to join us. Rico Bosco, Brandon Walker, Big Ev, Chris Clemmer, all guys who we've had on in the past. Stephen Shea was a guy we've had on in the past. So hopefully we can reach into the Rolodex and get some fun guests going forward. Like I said, at 9 a.m. when we switch over to the NFL. And every time we switch over to the NFL, it's like a reset. We reset the clock, reset the pod, because that portion of the podcast is going to go up on the Eagles Pinpool feed. Just that NFL half hour, 45 minutes, hour, whatever it happens to be. That's going to go up on that Eagles Pinpool podcast feed where you check out on the Shane page, Chalk Talk, Armchair Scout, all the other stuff that's on that podcast feed will also include the NFL portion of Saturday morning spread. But enough introduction. Let's get started. Y'all ready to talk some ball? Let's talk college football, folks. Let's talk about week 4. Yeah, I think I always get the weeks messed up in the NFL and college because they're 1 off. And then I'm always thinking college is 2 off because there was week 0. So I'm always messed up in the head for a variety of reasons, but especially when it comes to remembering what week we're on in college or the NFL. But it is college football week 4. Here we are. We got 3 noon bets on the card for me. I've got a 3:30 bet, a 4 o'clock bet, a 7:30 bet, and an 11 o'clock bet. So 7 total plays on the college football board for me today. And then we're going to also go through about 10 other games on the schedule that I didn't have a play on, but I do think it's worth bringing up and talking about. So let's start off. Let's go in the noon slate. And I think what probably has to be the biggest game of the noon slate. Yeah, I'd say it's the biggest game of the noon slate. It's the big noon kickoff. It is on Fox, Utah, Texas Tech. It is at Utah. The winner of this game will be locked in as the favorite and the cream of the crop of the Big 12. Texas Tech was a sexy, darling pick all offseason to make the playoff. Texas Tech backed up the truck. It reportedly spent upwards of $28 million to beef up that roster. For lack of a better term, they really spent a lot on that defensive and offensive line. So it is a lot of beef that they spent those millions on. And yeah, they've looked good. The Red Raiders have looked good. There's no way of denying that. They're outscoring their opponents, I think, by a combined, 100-something points. But they haven't played anybody, Paul. If I'm buying stock on any Big 12 darling that remade itself in its own image this offseason, it's the Utah Utes. New Mexico transfer Devin Dampier followed his offensive coordinator, Jason Beck, to Salt Lake City. He's looked like the real deal. 628 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, no interceptions. 73% completion percentage. He has been absolutely spectacular in his first season at Utah, transferring over from New Mexico, fully answering the critics who questioned whether or not he could play at this level. The Utes returned all 5 starters up front, including 2 future first-round pick NFL tackles. Spencer Fano might be a top 5 pick for the Utes at left tackle. Utah has been excellent in the red zone this year, cashing in for touchdowns on 15 of 16 red zone possessions thus far. I think a huge part of that is just having a better offensive line than every defensive line they go against. We'll get back to that. On defense, Utah's allowed below a 50% completion percentage and only 134 passing yards per game. I historically trust the Kyle Whittingham defense year in and year out. They had a couple tough years in the last couple of years, but I think this is a different Utes team. This is kind of the Utes team that we expected going into the Big 12 last year, maybe even the year before. The Cam Rising mess of the last couple of years, I think, has muddled what should have been better years for Utah into bad years, frankly, or at least down years for the Utah standard. And something that strikes me about Utah, they were not my pick in the offseason. I was kind of stuck between Kansas State and Arizona State, and I have a sleeper Big 12 team that we'll get to. But I looked at Utah. I picked them to go 9-3. I didn't pick them to make the playoff or make the conference championship, but I saw the vision, but I didn't pick them to go all the way. The thing I'm seeing now that you see maybe some warts with Arizona State, obviously Kansas State's a disaster fire, a disaster and a dumpster fire mixed into one. Baylor's defense probably isn't good enough. Colorado, not that they were up at the top, but they're not in the mix. There's plenty of teams that maybe we expected to be up near the top. Probably doesn't look the same now for the Big 12. And Utah, in the same way that they were going against the Lincoln Riley USC teams and the Mario Cristobal Oregon teams, and some of those maybe softer Pac-12 teams, Utah kind of became that punch you in the face, tough Pac-12 team where they challenged the narrative of the soft West Coast team. And then in the last couple of years, they've lost that a little bit. But now you look around and you look at these teams, and it does feel a little old school Big 12-ish, a little couple of years ago Pac-12-ish, where a lot of these teams have good quarterbacks. A lot of these teams throw it all over the yard. Some of them run it all over the yard. I don't know how many of them are tough. I don't know how many of them have good defenses. I don't know how many of them have, top 15 picks on the offensive line like the Utah Utes do. So I think there's a chance Utah's kind of starting to establish themselves as that tough team of the Big 12 in the same way that they did in the later stages of the Pac-12. So I think that's what we're expecting to see. That's what I'm expecting to see from Utah. I say we're a lot because I've had multiple people on my show since the start of it. I had Sean Bernard. Before that, I had Jeremy Horwath. Shout out to Jeremy. Plenty of other guys have produced for me. So I always say we because I talked about Tough Cover like it was a team. But not against anyone on my team. I love Sean. But I'm not going to say we anymore. It's I. These are my picks. We're not a we. I'm not a team. I'm a me. So that was a tangent to go nowhere, which you'll get plenty of. We're on a one-man show. There will be plenty of one-man tangents by myself, but also we'll have plenty of guests that come along to break that monotony up a little bit. Utah has been an exceptional home team historically, going 91-28 over the last 18 years in Salt Lake City. The big X factor in this game, as we kind of touched on a second ago, Utah's O-line against Texas Tech's D-line. Best done, best action in the Big 12. Give me the O-line over the D-line. But more importantly in this matchup, give me Kyle Whittingham. I've been hearing about Joey McGuire this, Joey McGuire that for far too long with far too little to show for it. I understand this is supposed to be their year, but as Bill Simmons would say, can I see it? Joey McGuire is 26-16 at Texas Tech, with last year's 8-5 being his best record yet. I'll take the stability and steady hand of Kyle Whittingham, who's 146-72 since 2008. If you take out his first few years, the overall record, by the way, is still really impressive at 170-86. But I thought that was even more impressive. Let's get to another team in the Big 12. I called this the other day to one of my friends a Big 12 showdown. That's not the case. It's spiritually Big 12. Anytime I'm seeing teams in Texas, I automatically think Big 12. I grew up with TCU, Texas, Texas Tech, all those teams in the Big 12. Texas A&M was in the Big 12. But TCU, SMU should be a Big 12 matchup because SMU is the most Big 12 ACC team that's ever existed. But it's a Big 12 ACC showdown. And give me the Big 12. Give me TCU laying all of those 6.5 points. I'll lay them against SMU. The Horned Frogs have come out blazing behind gunslinger Josh Hoover, quarterback. Hoover has been uber efficient, completing 73% of his passes. The O-line for the Horned Frogs has been excellent. They're yet to allow a sack, and they're averaging 7.4 yards per rush. If SMU can't get the ground game going, the offense will be questionable as the offensive line has not held up at all for quarterback Kevin Jennings, who had a great year last year. It's not been quite as good to start this year. Jennings has been effective when given time, but the Horned Frogs rank 32nd nationally in sack rate and are far better than the defensive lines the Mustangs have already allowed sacks to and already struggled against. I think TCU wins this game off the strength of great quarterback play and Josh Hoover, who I think is one of the 5 to 10, maybe 15 best quarterbacks in the country. I really, really like Josh Hoover. I've been a big fan since he started starting there at TCU, and I'm still going to ride the Hoover. I need a saying for that. The Hoover blank. Is there an H? The helicopter. The Hoover helicopter. That doesn't sound good. I'll work on it. I'll get back to you guys. But they're gonna do really well off of the strength of the O-line, quarterback, being able to run the ball, and playing good defense. So a good football team. All that to say, I think the class of the Big 12 to me is going to be the winner. Or I'll say these 3 teams. It will be the winner of Arizona State Baylor, the winner of Texas Tech Utah, and then if TCU wins this game, I'm buying all the stock that I've already kind of been talking about buying with TCU officially. Maybe I'll even put in a bet on them to get to the playoff or to win the Big 12. If they win this game and cover this number, I'll start to feel even better about TCU than I already do. And I would argue I'm one of the higher people that there are on TCU in the country. So let's move on to my last play on the noon slate. I've got Arkansas minus 6.5 at Memphis for 2 units. That game is on ABC. By the way, all 3 bets at noon, 2-unit plays. Utah minus 3, 2-unit play. TCU minus 6.5, 2-unit play. Arkansas minus 6.5, 2-unit play. And another team that I'm betting on primarily because of that offensive line. The Hogs offensive line has exceeded expectations early on. They rank inside the top 20 in line yards, stuff rate, allowed pass blocking. Quarterback Taylon Green leads the nation in total yards, 1,173 total yards, second in QBR. Arkansas may have lost last week to Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, but Taylon Green ran for 305 yards, threw for that'd be crazy. Threw for 305 yards, ran for 115 yards against a better defense in Ole Miss than he will see today in Memphis. The Razorbacks rank first nationally in yards per rush, 13th in yards per pass. The Tigers rank 134th in tackling rate. Give me the Hogs. Woo! Pig Suey. Minus 6.5 at the Memphis Tigers. Weird that they're playing a road game at Memphis, but that game's on ABC. TCU SMU is on ESPN2, and Utah Texas Tech is on Fox. At 3:30, we have my Notre Dame Fighting Irish. I'm laying them, folks. Give me all the 24.5 points. Notre Dame minus 24.5 versus Purdue. That's a 1-unit play for me. Last season, Notre Dame defeated Purdue 66-7 in West Lafayette on the road after losing to NI. Feels like they've had a similar wake-up call this year. The offense certainly hasn't been the problem, and I think they flexed their muscles while the defense has something to prove. The Irish rank among the top of the nation in explosive passes and rushes. That has not been a normal thing at Notre Dame. But the problem is, what's also not been a normal thing at Notre Dame is having one of the worst defenses in the country. And Chris Ash has done a dreadful, dreadful job taking over for Al Golden. I never thought I could miss a defensive coordinator this much, but man, I miss Al Golden so much. He did such a great job at Notre Dame with Marcus Freeman and Chris Ash. Said he wasn't going to change anything, and it seems like he's changed everything. Nothing was the same. Shout out to Aubrey. But you look at the rest of this Notre Dame schedule, right? I still think there's one game they might not be favored in. And if they win all the games before that game, versus Purdue, they're a 24.5-point favorite. At Arkansas, I bet they're probably a 4 or 5-ish point favorite next week at Arkansas. That's probably their second toughest game of the year. And Arkansas is the 9th or 10th best team in the SEC. I don't think that Arkansas is necessarily a team that I'm going to be afraid of for Notre Dame. Boise State. We've seen this year's Boise State, maybe not necessarily the Boise State of the past. Then you have NC State. We're going to talk about NC State in a second. I'm not going to say anything about that quite yet. Then you have USC. That could be a tough game. We're going to talk about them when we get to my picks later on in a second. Then you go versus Navy. They're going to win that game. At Pitt, probably their third or fourth toughest game of the year, but they should win that game. Pitt just melted down against West Virginia. Then you have versus Syracuse. Then you have at Stanford. They're going to win the rest of their games. And we're going to have an uncomfortable conversation about a 10-2 Notre Dame that hasn't really beaten anybody. I've been told the mic. So there we go. I'm a little closer to the mic now. Hopefully that gives us a little better audio. But Notre Dame's an interesting conversation. Big Cat has been kind of, I don't know if it's a shtick or trolling, or they were joking about it on Pick'em that Rico called it a shtick and Big Cat said it was not a shtick. It's his opinion, yada, yada, yada. He said that Notre Dame's in the same exact spot that they were last year. And he's almost right. There's only one thing he's ignoring. He said that Northern Illinois is basically a 2-loss loss. And he's right. And he said that Texas A&M and Miami are almost like half losses, where you put those together, it's like one loss, where neither of those losses are terrible. They're both a 1 point and a 3-point loss. They lost by a combined 4 points against two teams that are now minus money to make the college football playoff. And if they do make the college football playoff, that only helps Notre Dame's argument if they are sitting at 10-2, especially since those games happened, September 13th and the other one in August. So that helps Notre Dame as well. But it's interesting. The difference is last year they beat Texas A&M. And I'm not telling you Texas A&M was a world beater. They were a 9-win SEC team who, going into the last game against Texas, had a chance to win their way into the SEC championship. I don't know if they're going to have that win this year. Unless USC, unless NC State, unless one of these teams pops up and it becomes a true opportunity at a quality win, I think they might sneak in, but I think it will almost hurt the brand because of how much negativity it'll bring. People will be so mad if Notre Dame makes the playoffs after winning 10 straight, if they haven't really beaten anybody. Everybody talks about the unfair treatment Notre Dame gets. When I argue they got unfair treatment the opposite way last year, where Penn State and another team, Texas, lost the SEC and Big Ten championships, and it didn't matter. They weren't penalized. Notre Dame didn't move up in the rankings. That's a conversation for another day. Speaking of the NC State Wolfpack, at 3:30, NC State, give me +3 at the Dukies for 1 unit on ESPN2. NC State has not won in Durham since 2008. I think they break that number today. Win on the road against a spiraling Duke team that lost 45-18 to Illinois and then got run off the field against Tulane. They ended up making it close. They only lost by 7. That was not a 7-point loss. They were run off the field early in that game and had a little bit of a comeback later on. And Mentz is putting up big numbers and better numbers probably than C.J. Bailey. But I like what I see with C.J. Bailey. He's 71% completion percentage, 720 yards passing, 5 touchdowns, 1 pick. He doesn't take sacks. He's super efficient. He doesn't turn the ball over. He's a sophomore, 6'6", big kid. I think C.J. Bailey is a really, really interesting player and a prospect for the future. And I'm excited to kind of follow CJ Bailey's track going forward here. So CJ Bailey is why I'm betting NC State. They're sitting here at 3-0. Obviously, haven't really played anybody. They beat East Carolina. They beat Virginia. They beat Wake Forest. None of those teams are bad, but it's not like they played Central Connecticut either, I guess I'd say. Or none of those teams are good, but they aren't the worst, I should say. But give me NC State +2. I think they win the game outright. So a little bit of a sleepy 334 slate in terms of my bets there. There's a couple better games out there on the board that didn't end up on my card. We'll go through them after I get through the rest of my card here. But Notre Dame -24.5 and NC State +3. Only 2 1-unit plays that I have on the whole card, and they both come in that mid slate. So maybe go out for a little brunch, a lunch, a dinner, an early dinner with a spouse or something like that in that mid slate. Stay seated for that noon slate, and then get locked and loaded for that night slate. So at 7:30, we've got one of my second favorite play here of the college football slate, over 59.5 Arizona State Baylor. That's a 3-unit play that is on Fox. Quarterback Sawyer Robertson has been incredible, already accumulating 859 passing yards, 7 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Baylor's allowing 235 rushing yards per game and hasn't been good against the pass either. This is against an Arizona State offense that is 19th in the country, averaging 232.3 rush yards per game. And Sam Leavitt is sitting there ready to throw and run as well. I don't know if a Baylor QB can win the Heisman with one of the worst defenses in the country while only winning 8-ish games. But maybe Sawyer Robertson could get a New York invite. Maybe if Sam Leavitt turns it on, he could be a guy who gets a New York invite. These are two really, really of the best college football quarterbacks. I know Leavitt hasn't been great to start the year. He just led Arizona State to the playoff last year. I think he's going to bounce back here and have a huge day. I think this is a huge spot for both these teams, especially Sawyer Robertson, who has a legitimate chance at breaking into at least the discussion for the Heisman. Baylor's 4th in the country in passing yards per game, thanks to Sawyer Robertson, 14th in the country in total yards per game, just overall offensively. And as of 7 a.m., you could still find 59.5 on DraftKings or ESPN. I haven't checked that since then, but 59.5, 60.5, I still like it, but I got it at 59.5. And then that was a pretty pathetic drum roll. I think we do have some media in here for some drum rolls. Is that? I don't know if that's working. Let's here in the future with the Riverside. This is a new software for me, so I'll be messing around with this as we go. As you can see, you have the Chalk Talk logo behind me. That will be eventually a Saturday morning spread or an Eagles pin pull logo that will pull up. But the best bet through the late night, as Kid Cudi would say, at 11 o'clock, to me over 54.5. Michigan State, USC. I know USC not in the Pac-12 anymore. I know Michigan State never in the Pac-12. This feels spiritually Pac-12 after dark. That's a beautiful thing that we've lost as a country. So give me the over 54.5 in Michigan State, USC. My favorite play, maybe of the entire week. Obviously, everybody knows Jalen Hurts touchdown right behind me. Best value bet in sports. Everybody knows that's my best bet every weekend. But outside of that, my best bet of the entire weekend, over 54.5 in Michigan State, USC. I think this number should be around 62, 63, 64, mid to low 60s. And we're getting 54.5. A stat courtesy of one of our pals, Ryan Beef Coyle, who I know I'll have on in the future. Since 2021, when Lincoln Riley took over at USC, they are the best team in the country at hitting the over. 37-18 record, hitting in 67.3% of the games. Michigan State is averaging 35 points per game. The Spartans gave up 40 to Boston College, including 21 points in one quarter with 380 passing yards. A dreadful Spartan secondary goes up against the USC offense that is averaging 55 points per game. Probably not a great combo, especially when you add in the USC is also averaging 600. And some of the numbers here for USC are just eye-popping. And I know that they haven't played anybody yet. But even still, I mean, they did play Purdue It's one of the 3 games. Purdue's bad, but they are a Big Ten team. Even if they're bad, they're a Power 4 bad. You have Jaden Mayaba, who's playing some of the best ball in the country. 989 yards, 14.1 yards per attempt, 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Waymond Jordan at running back, 286 yards, running for 7.3 yards per carry. The backup running back is running for 7 yards per carry. The backup running for 13.8 yards per carry. Their receivers, you have Mekhi Lemon, 16 catches for 311 yards. You have Jacoby Lane, 9 catches, 239 yards. Those, and then even these other guys, 24.7 yards per catch, 22 yards per catch, 26.7 yards per catch. All of their biggest players are making huge, game-changing, field-turning plays on a regular basis. Their kicker, not to be, we're diving into the kickers. Kicker's been perfect so far this year for USC. The USC numbers offensively have been the best in the country, some of the best in the country, if not the best in the country, I should say. But not an unstoppable USC defense as we are accustomed to here, obviously. They gave up 20 to Georgia Southern. They're 98th in the country in passing yards allowed. And you look at Aiden Childs in Michigan State. They're 19-point dogs in this game. I think that's a bit rich for my blood. Aiden Childs has also seemingly taken strides into year 2 here. He has 656 yards with 7 touchdowns, only 1 interception. He's rushed for about 42 yards per game as well, even counting sacks, which I don't know if people that just follow the NFL and kind of briefly follow college football know that. It becomes evident when you're playing NCAA football 25, the game, because, man, taking sacks kills your quarterback's chances of trying to rush for 1,000 yards, or trying to rush for a lot of yards. Even still, Aiden Childs running for 42 yards per game. A good number there. He can make plays happen with his legs, certainly. And when Childs was bad last year, it wasn't because he couldn't move the ball and couldn't throw, couldn't run. It's because he would make boneheaded turnover plays that would completely flip the field. Not necessarily the worst thing for the over, if that trait rears its ugly head for the Michigan State Spartans here. I thought about taking the USC team total over at 37.5. I've seen that that's kind of a sharp play. Some of the experts out there that I've seen write some stuff up at that number. But like I said, I actually don't mind the Spartans to cover this number and maybe keep it closer than kind of score with USC. I don't think they're going to keep it closer in terms of holding USC and stopping USC. But I don't see USC stopping Michigan State very much. I think this could be, 41-34. I really do think it's that type of game, maybe 45-30, something like that. If you'd rather go the UFC team total, I think that's a great bet. If you wanted to take Michigan State plus 19, I think that's a solid bet as well. As of 7 a.m., you still could find a 54.5 out on the market for this total. Let's run down those bets real fast here so we can clip this out here and send it out to the people. Real quick, at noon, our 3 plays. We got Utah -3 versus Texas Tech for 2 units. We've got TCU -6.5 versus SMU for 2 units. Arkansas -6.5 at Memphis for 2 units. Notre Dame -24.5 versus Purdue for 1 unit. NC State +3 at Duke for 1 unit. At 7:30, we've got over 59.5 in Arizona State Baylor. And at 11 o'clock, the best bet, we've got over 54.5 in Michigan State USC, the Trojan War. Let's run down some games that did not make it on my card, but 7 or 10 games that I think are at least relevant to bring up and talk about today. At 12 o'clock, we've got Maryland at Wisconsin. This is an ugly start to the day at noon for the Big Ten here. I lean Maryland. If you made me make a play, if you're in a pool out there, you have to play a certain number of games. Maryland plus 10.5 interests me for the sole reason that I think Wisconsin is so bad that it's hard for me to want to lay 10.5 points with Wisconsin against anybody. Another game at 12 that I'd probably side with the underdog, Syracuse plus 17.5 at Clemson. The only reason I'm not betting this is because it is such an obvious bounce back spot and a kill spot for Clemson to come back angry and to kind of show the ACC that they still run the ACC even if everybody else owns them. But through 3 games, Notre Dame transfer Steve Angelo in 7 yards. I think it's worth looking at Syracuse plus 17.5. Maybe what's the team total here in this game for Cuse? You could find 17.5 out there. That's interesting. Syracuse either plus the 17.5 or team total over 17.5. It's an interesting bet. That's one I'll probably monitor live. I said every play I'll give out here. Obviously, can't do that with live plays, but you shouldn't worry about that too much. I kind of stink as a live gambler anyway. Much better when I can fire away beforehand and get them ready and get them out to the people before the games. But I do still monitor a couple games that maybe I'm too courage the cowardly dog to bet beforehand, and then you watch it for a quarter and you feel good about the number that you can find. Syracuse might be one I have my eye on to see just how Clemson comes out. If they come out firing, I don't want to bet against it, an angry Clemson team like that. But if they come out lackadaisical and Syracuse moves the ball, maybe I will fire on Syracuse. At 3:30, the game that did not make my card that came closest to making my card, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I just spent time in Lincoln, and let me tell you, this town, the bars around Haymarket, as they call it, the bars around the stadium, everybody is ready. Like this is the biggest Nebraska game you've ever seen. And obviously that's not the case if you're above my age, but if you're my age, we haven't seen a whole lot of important Nebraska football. If they can go out and win this game and you're 4-0 and you can bank that win over the Michigan Wolverines, regardless of how good we think Michigan is, that would be a pretty big announcement by Nebraska that we're not just same old Nebraska. We're not fake old Nebraska. Nebraska is 0-27 in their last 27 games against opponents. I would argue Nebraska is the team that should be favored here. Michigan should not be favored. I lean Nebraska. Now, Mark, the reason I'm not betting Nebraska is a scary, scary man. I wasn't prepared to do this, but we've got to bring it up. We've got to bring it up, and it's a shame that the immoral university that is Michigan forced my guy, Biff Poggi, to wear sleeves on his shirt. Let's show the people here. Make sure that the people can see that. Biff Poggi is the Michigan interim coach this weekend. The guy is an absolute legend. He was a high school football coaching legend at St. Francis in Maryland, and then went on to coach Charlotte, went on to become a Harbaugh assistant, and he is a top I guess I'd call it Sharon Moore assistant. I don't know what his job was before he stepped on as the interim, but he's the interim. And last week, they put up the most points they've ever put up as the Michigan Wolverines, I'm pretty sure. So pretty unbelievable. I don't know if that's the most points they've ever put up or since like 1950 or since 1940 or in the big house or whatever it was. They went out there and they scored 63-3. Maybe it was the biggest margin of victory. One of those stats. Didn't write that one down. Now, the interesting thing is Andy Staples brought this up on Part of My Take. Last week, Sharon Moore was able to prepare the team. And at 12 o'clock on that game day, or maybe I think it was the night before, so Thursday at midnight. I guess that's technically Friday, 12:01. Whatever you want to say. Imaginary people, stop yelling at me. Michigan could no longer have contact with Sharon Moore. Sharon Moore stopped having contact with the team. It immediately became Biff Poggi's team. Biff coached the team. They won 63-3, yada, yada, yada. But Biff was the guy running practice this week, or allegedly, yada, quotes, Sharon Moore was not running practice and not involved in the game plan. Was he involved last week? We don't know. We don't know the ins and outs of what's going on at Michigan for this suspension. And I'm scared. What if Biff Poggi was just a guy who could get the guys going, but wasn't a guy who could maybe prepare them for the week, maybe prepared them too hard. Maybe they're excited after last week. But I think there's also a chance Bryce Underwood just got unleashed as a runner. and Michigan figured out that another level to the offense that they can run. I think Nebraska's the better team. I think Matt Rule's probably the better coach. I think that Nebraska has the better defense, as we saw Oklahoma kind of shred that Michigan defense a bit at times. But I'm too afraid to plunk down the money and bet on the Cornhuskers. Next game at 3:30, Auburn at Oklahoma. Oklahoma 7.5-point favorite. If that number was 5.5, 6, maybe even 6.5, just under a touchdown, I think that would have ended up on my card. 7.5, just a bit outside, just a bit too rich for my blood. And then you got Tulane at Ole Miss. Tulane plus 12.5 at Ole Miss would be my lean on that game. But I don't want to lean on Lane. I think Lane is a guy who, when he can win by a lot, he does, and he usually puts it on him. He hasn't been doing it this year quite as much, but Tulane might not be Arkansas. Tulane might not be the other team that they played to. I'm already forgetting. Ole Miss. Ole Miss played another tough team, as I'm talking to myself here. Kentucky, not a tough team, but they didn't put it on Kentucky. They only won by a touchdown when they were favored by 8.5. I think there's a chance that Lane wants a blowout here. And maybe there's a chance I'm underestimating Tulane. Tulane might just be the best G5 team in the country. Tulane, with a good performance here and winning out, is probably the G5 playoff team. But I'm always skeptical, just like I was with Arkansas, betting Arkansas minus 6.5 against Memphis. I'm always skeptical of these G5 teams stepping up to play in the SEC. I think it's a little different when they step up to play Big 12 ACC teams or maybe even down Big 10 teams. But when it comes to the SEC, I feel like it usually doesn't go well. I don't really have the stats to support that argument. I'm sure they are out there. I just didn't look for them. An interesting game at 3:30. North Carolina at UCF. Scott Frost and UCF favored by 7 points here. UCF, not a team that they probably expected to be favored very much. They only beat Jacksonville State 17-10 when they were a 20.5-point favorite in that game. Now they did come out and beat a dog 68-7. North Carolina coming off 20-3 win at Charlotte and a 41-6 win against Richmond. Two absolute cupcakes. Lean Carolina. Carolina plus 7. I just don't think this UCF team has proven they should be favored by 7 against anybody. Carolina hasn't proven that I should put my hard-earned cash on the line for the Tar Heels yet either. So I'm not going to bet on Jordan, but if you made me make a bet in that game, I would lean with Jordan. 6 o'clock, West Virginia at Kansas. I saw this game, just for a little background for the people out there who don't know. I prepare my spreads before I see the spreads, and then I compare them to what the spreads are, and that's usually how I come up with my favorite bets for the week. When I set this spread, it was around this number, 12.5, 11.5, whatever it was, 10.5, something like that for Kansas. I thought this would open at 5 or 6, and I'd bet Kansas. And it opened at 13.5. You can get it at 12.5. I lean Kansas's way there at 6 o'clock. A lot of points for Kansas to lay, so I'm going to back off. At 7 o'clock, we have South Carolina at Missouri. This spread here on this game has obviously bounced around due to injuries. Lenoris Sellers is... Let's check the update on Lenoris Sellers. This is bad radio, folks. He's good to go for tomorrow's game and will start for the number 23 Missouri Tigers. He's banged up. I'm sure that's part of why he is still a reason that they are the 10-point underdog still. I lean South Carolina. I'm not going to bet it due to the uncertainty around Lenoris Sellers and that injury. 7:30, one of the biggest games of the day. Illinois plus 6.5 at Indiana. I lean with Bielema. I lean with the Illinois strictly because I think this game's coming down to the wire. I think this is going to be like a 27-24 last field goal wins it, or maybe a field goal to tie it to go into overtime. Like I could see this game going to overtime. I could see this game being one of the best games of the day, one of the best games of the year so far. Maybe I'm totally off. Vegas seems to think Indiana's way better than Illinois, and that surprises me. I think these teams are about the same to me. I had them both at 9-3 before the year. I think neither of them have really changed my opinion on what they are so far. Maybe I take Illinois slightly more seriously than I did coming into the year with that beatdown of Duke. I think they should have a relatively similar power rating. I was really, really surprised. And obviously, Illinois is number 9. Indiana's number 19. Usually this means like the higher ranked team is favored by this much. You should take that team. I think Illinois, I think the top 25 voters might be more right here than the gamblers, which is shocking. Because you've heard me talk about it before. I hate the top 25 voters. I think the top 25 voters are morons for the large part, but that's a topic for another day. Another game at 7:30, the game that College Game Day is at here this weekend. We have the Florida Gators taking on the Miami Dolphins. It has been a shockingly tough year for the Florida Gators. And we knew what their schedule was going to be. We did not know that they were going to struggle with USF and that they were going to lose to USF, which means that they start 1-2 here. We're in a trust tree, right? We're in a sicko little trust tree here. I kind of want to bet Florida. I kind of want to bet Florida. It feels so ugly. It feels like nobody in the country is going to want to bet Florida. And they're only a 7.5 point dog to the number 4 team in the country in Miami. I don't think we're going to get a lot of Gator fans traveling to this game after losing the last 2 games. And you look at what's coming up for Florida. You have at Miami, Texas, at Texas A&M, Mississippi State, Georgia. Down the line, you get at Ole Miss, you get Tennessee, Florida State. If you want to get off the mat, you got to do it sooner than later if you're Billy Napier and try to save your job. If you lose this game, it feels like you might get fired on Sunday. So this is a huge game. College Game Day is there, shockingly, with Florida being 1-2. A big part of me wants Miami to be really good. That would help Notre Dame. And I hope Miami doesn't do the classic Mario Cristobal slip up down the line against a bad team either, which maybe this would be that. Man, I said this last week. I said everybody in the country wanted to take LSU. And they did. And they cashed. But it took DJ Lagway throwing 5 interceptions. And Florida State in that game the whole way. Despite DJ Lagway playing one of the worst games I have ever seen a college football quarterback play. It is stunning what he did in that game for Florida to have stayed close in that game. He just thinks this Florida team is not as bad as we think. They've just been turnover. They've been so turnover prone. Maybe if they benched DJ or if DJ just ran more or took less chances. I really think Florida can hang in this game, and I think they will. But I don't have the guts, and everybody knows I hate Billy Napier, and I've been predicting his downfall since the moment he got hired. I bet against Florida a ton last year before that they kind of figured it out and found themselves again. Can't do it. I can't do it this year, even if I want to bet on Florida. I can't do it. One more game, late night game, alongside of the late night game that I already gave out at 11 o'clock, 10:30. We have Cal going at San Diego State. I do lean with Cal. Jaron Kiave, Sangapulatele, Justin Wilcox, one of the best underdog coaches against the spread, but they're favored by 14 here at San Diego State. I think Cal takes care of business here. I didn't put them on the card, but I do think that they are the type of team that can beat these bad teams into a pulp with a much better quarterback than most of these teams have. So real quick, let's run down the plays again. If anybody joined late, if anybody, just waking up, rise and shine, folks, let's run down the plays on my card and we'll add a marker for this clip. EU -6.5 versus SMU for 2 units at 12 o'clock. Arkansas -6.5 at Memphis for 2 units. Utah -3 against Texas Tech for 2 units. At 3:30, Notre Dame -24.5 for 1 unit against Purdue. At 4 o'clock, NC State +3 at Duke. At 7:30, we've got over 59.5 Arizona State Baylor. At 11 o'clock, we've got over 54.5 Michigan State USC. So, in about 5 minutes, we have our guy Shane coming over on the show to talk all things NFL, all things week 3. I said week 2. What an unbelievable typo from me in a big spot. I'm going to tweet that. Week 3. No! As they would say in The Simpsons. But real quick, let's talk about I've been doing this on the Tough Cover where we give out my favorite DFS lineup of the week. And I did put one together here. Let me pull it up here. At quarterback, this might shock people. We're going with Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams is being ranked as the number 7 quarterback of the week on ESPN Fantasy by their expert rankers. He is going against the number 31 defense against fantasy quarterbacks in the Dallas Cowboys. They are out. They allow the second most points in the NFL to fantasy quarterbacks. Last week, we saw Russell Wilson go absolutely bonkers. Just insane what Russell Wilson did after looking inept against a not special Commanders defense in week 1. So at running back, we're going with Travis Etienne at 5,900. He's averaging 19.3 fantasy. Houston has not been good against the run. And if anything, my biggest takeaway from the offense from Liam Cohen in Jacksonville is if he's there, he's going to scheme up a run game. It's that simple. He is always going to be able to find a run game, and he's found it with Travis Etienne. He did give Tootin 8 carries, and Tootin did pretty well. But Travis Etienne seems to be really the bell cow running back there in Jacksonville. Jordan Mason at 5,400. Now, that is just totally, and Aaron Jones is out. Jordan Mason's the full-time starter. Starting quarterback is out. You think they're going to lean on the run. So give me Jordan Mason at 5,400, a little bit of a discount. So I can spend my money at these 2 big spots. CD Lamb, give me a really expensive option here in CD Lamb, going against the porous Chicago Bears defense, allowing the 4th most fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. CD Lamb averaging 22.1 fantasy points per game. Give me JSN, who appears to be one of the largest target shares in the entire NFL in terms of the percentage of balls he's catching of his quarterback's completions. It is an absurdly high number, 6,500 in terms of what his cost is on DraftKings, 22.4 fantasy points per game. New Orleans, what worries me about that spot is that, it's a little tougher if that game's a blowout. But New Orleans has hung tough in a couple games, so let's see, maybe they force Seattle to keep it in the air. At $5,600, give me Jacoby Myers, 15.3 fantasy points per game. I expect Geno to have a bounce back day. At 5,300, I think this is the steal of the DFS week. Rome Odunze going against the Dallas Cowboys, who will allow the second most fantasy points to wide receivers. He's only $5,300 right now. He performed like a wide receiver 1 last week. I think he might just be a top 15 to 20 wide receiver going forward. So I'm all in on Rome Odunze. At tight end, give me Tyler Warren, $4,400, 13.4 fantasy points per game. Tennessee, not a good defense. Keep it simple, stupid. I thought it was a very good value for where it was. At 3,100, give me the San Francisco 49ers, 7 points per game so far. They're going against Arizona, who's middle of the pack in that. But we all know Kyler Murray can give it away sometimes. He can have some kind of disaster games. And we could see that today, or tomorrow, I should say, with a San Francisco defense. So to run that down one more time, Caleb Williams, Travis Etienne, Jordan Mason, CeeDee Lamb, Jacoby Myers, Rome Odunze, Tyler Warren, JSN, and the San Francisco 49ers defense. That would be my DFS lineup for the week. And if you're out there and you've got any of those guys in your lineup, you're probably not thinking about benching them, but you should feel good. I guess you might be with Caleb, but you should feel good about all those options. You feel good about San Fran as your defense. Don't go to the waiver wire. You're all good, bro. Shane Haff should be joining us any minute here. Access to the StreamYard since we're right here on the Chalk Talk StreamYard. But we've got an interesting NFL slate here, and to me, it seems like they've done a better job than last week. Last week we only had 3 4 o'clock games. This week we have 4 4 o'clock games. I think it should be more like giving me like 5 or 6 4 o'clock games. Divide it up. Stop giving me 9, 10, 1 o'clocks. It's insane. All right, there we go. We've got our guy Shane in the lobby.
Your season, your shot. The NFL season is rolling, and every touchdown can bring you closer to a payout with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. From first touchdown score to anytime touchdown props or the thrill of live in-game betting, every snap is loaded with opportunity. And this one is specifically for new customers who can bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Plus over $200 off of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code PINPULL. That's code PINPULL to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you place your first $5 bet. Plus over $200 off of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. That is 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Fees may apply in Illinois. Void in Ontario. Bonus bet expires 7 days after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. NFL Sunday Ticket offer for new subscribers only and auto renews until canceled. Digital games and commercial use excluded. Restrictions apply. Additional NFL Sunday Ticket terms at youtube.com/go/NFL Sunday Ticket /terms. Limited time offer.
This episode is brought to you by ESPN. Catch the first WWE Premium Live event on ESPN, WrestlePalooza, live on Saturday, September 20th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. It's going to be an epic night in Indianapolis, featuring some of the biggest WWE superstars. This event is only on ESPN, so go to stream.espn.com and sign up to the ESPN app today for your all-access pass to WrestlePalooza and all WWE Premium Live events.
It's back to school season, and Clorox is donating 2 million disinfecting wipes to classrooms across America. Because back to school means things can get a little bit messy. Just ask second grade teacher Mr. Torres.
Put me and just one Clorox wipe on a team? We can take on crayon smudges, sticky fingerprints on every surface, sneezes on the door handle, juice box explosion by the sink, snack crumbs, and don't even get me started on the bathroom passes.
Clorox disinfecting wipes. Teacher's #1 wipe.
Think about it. Bathroom passes.
Clean feels good. Based on unit sales data.
Heather is a nurse practitioner from United Healthcare.
We meet patients wherever they live.
During a house call, she found Jack had an issue.
Jack's blood pressure was dangerously high.
It was 217 over 110.
So they got Jack to the hospital and got him the help he needed.
He had had a stent placed in his heart, preventing a massive heart attack.
If it wasn't for my guardian angel, I wouldn't be here.
Hear more stories like Jack's at unitedhealthcare.com. Benefits, features, and/or devices vary by plan, area, limitation, and exclusions apply.
Shaq here, spinning fast-acting pain relief with Icy Hot. Ice works fast, heat makes it last. Icy Hot, you're so back.
Bang, there we go. Our guy Shane. Shane, how we doing?
Doing good. Mark, how about you?
I can't hear Shane. That might be on my end, though.
Test. It is lighting up on my end, so I think you should be able to hear me.
This will be edited out, by the way, for the people out there for the podcast. But let me see what's going on. Shane's backing out and backing back in here. But like I was saying, I hate how the NFL has decided we're going to give 9, 10, 1 o'clock games, and we're going to do 3 or 4 o'clock games, and that's going to be how we handle it, and you better like the America's Game of the Week on Fox. I understand why they do it. It's to drive ratings to that 425 America's Game of the Week or the CBS Game of the Week. Shane Half? Still no sound on my end. I don't know if the people out there, or if anyone wants to comment along and tell me if they can hear Shane. But let me see if it's anything on...
Check. Mic check. Testing. 1, 2, 3.
One more try?
Testing.
That was on me, folks. I think you heard Shane the whole time. So we're still getting the hang of things. I don't know what that was from my laptop. I had to go into a different setting than normal for some audio stuff there, but we're still learning, folks. Episode 1 here. We got through an hour with no technical difficulties. We were bound for a brief hiccup, but let's do this. Welcome back to Saturday Morning Spread right here, episode 1. It is the NFL portion. You heard the last hour, our college football picks. Now for the next 30, 40 hour, whatever it is, we're going to give you our NFL picks preview week 3. I tweeted out week 2. I'm all out of sorts here. Week 3 in the NFL. We're going to preview that, and we're going to talk about our favorite games. And we're going to upload this to the podcast feed, not just to the YouTube, not just to Twitter. So let's get it started, Shane. We have our guy here at Shane Half NFL, my co-host on Chalk Talk. Shane, how we doing?
Doing good, Mark. Always excited for another week of the NFL season. I know college is a big thing for you. Something I watch a little more casually, but always excited to talk more NFL football.
Absolutely. And we felt like the first guest here had to be the Mr. Eagles Pinpool himself, had to be our guy, Shane Half, and bring him on to talk some NFL. And Shane, I was just talking, we won't talk too much about this. I think I think we've talked about this before and you're on the same side as me. I cannot stand that there's only 3 or 4 o'clock games on, and it's 3 is a nightmare. 4 is like, okay, there's enough going on that I can be entertained, but 3 is a joke. Why can't we just have like 6 at 4 o'clock, 6 at 1 o'clock, maybe even 2 at Monday night, 2, whatever it is? I hate the way we've decided at least like half of every slate, if not more, has to be at 1 o'clock. Do you agree with me there?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't love the dual Monday night games, but it's because they play them one after another, and I'm never going to stay up that late. But yeah, just split it in half. Like, give me a game of the week on Sunday night, and then split everything else between the early and the afternoon slate on Sundays. Just let me choose what I want to watch instead of packing it all in at one.
Yeah, I totally agree with you there. And let's get it started. I kind of lead off with the Eagles and the Rams. I'm not gonna make you talk too much about it because on Eagles Pinpool, there's a million podcasts and videos you can find with us breaking down Eagles Rams. And Shane and Johnny Page, everybody check that out and check out what they do over there, breaking down all things Eagles. I'm not going to make you talk too much about it. Is it weird? This is a 1 o'clock game. Like, this feels like this should be an America's Game of the Week or a Sunday nighter or a Monday nighter. Like, I'm kind of annoyed this is a 1 o'clock game. I can't lie.
Yeah, this seems like a game that you would expect to be, at least the afternoon game. And I don't get too worked up about those, except for the fact that I actually am not going to be able to watch this one live because it's a 1 o'clock game. And so that one really stinks for me. Like, if there was a game in the early season for the Eagles that I would love to have at least had in the afternoon slot, it would have been this one, just for the sake of watching live and being on post game. So it does annoy me a little more than normal that this one's that noon game, or 1 o'clock game, because I'm going to miss kickoff and most of the game.
So I'll focus on the rest of the slate then a little bit. If I'm looking at the non 1 o'clock games, if you look at the 4 o'clock games, the Sunday night or the Monday night, what's kind of the thing that intrigues you the most going into week 2? You have New Orleans, Seattle, probably not much there. Denver and the Chargers could be interesting. Dallas, Chicago. Little bit of a loser leaves town dumpster fire there. Arizona, San Fran, both 2-0 teams. And then you've got the night games with the Kansas City storyline. Are they going to get right? And then you have Detroit, Baltimore, where one of those teams has to be 1-2. What's kind of the game you're most looking forward to that you'll be in the couch ready to watch?
Yeah, it's got to be Kansas, New York, right? Which team's going to finally win a football game? No, I mostly just say that to take shots at team in the division and a team I don't really care for, but it's got to be Monday Night Football. Detroit, Baltimore, and they're both 1-1 and they've got their dramatically different ways. Baltimore has looked dominant in both of their games and just managed to blow that lead week 1 that of course we've talked about. And then you look at Detroit, who I think both of us thought would take a major step back, and week 1 really validated that belief that we held all off season. Like, I don't think it wasn't a week 1 overreaction. It was that week 1 confirmed what we had thought the entire off season. But then they come out last week and they could run the ball. Jared Goff looked good. Like, everything looked good for Detroit last week. And so I think there's a bit of an element of who are the Detroit Lions? And they're going to go up against a team that we both think is really good in the Ravens on Monday Night Football. And so, we can complain about some of the scheduling things, but I think the NFL nailed this one. It's going to be a great Monday night.
Yeah, it is. And I've seen a lot of casuals out there that are kind of surprised the Ravens are 4.5-point favorites. That line actually opened at Baltimore -6. So the Vegas really thinks Baltimore's like a 6-point favorite, to be honest. The people have kind of bet Detroit down to the point where that line has dropped down to 4.5. Are you surprised that Vegas looks at at this and thinks there's that big of a gap? Or do you think that's them kind of being like, we're not going to overreact to week 2, I guess? I think that even their win total was 9.5, 10.5. So there was some potential regression baked in to what Vegas thought they'd be in the offseason. And I guess Vegas just isn't just throwing that all away because they put up 52 points in week 2. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I feel like there's probably an element of just the Ravens have looked really good. Like, they've looked like a buzzsaw. This is probably a bigger spread if the Ravens don't just lose their minds for the last 5 minutes of week 1 against the Bills. Obviously, you can't do that. And I would assume Lions fans are pouring money on the Lions side of this thing after last week, and they're kind of rejuvenated in that. But I'm not really surprised. Early season lines can be really weird. And so, I think this is going to be a great game. I think it's certainly possible the Ravens just run them out of the stadium. I'm not predicting that. I don't guess there's an outcome in this game that could shock me other than like the Lions blowing out the Ravens, which I don't think is going to happen.
We're going to rapid fire. I'm going to ask you kind of the close games, the games that have a spread, let's say 2.5 or 2.5, 3 or under, and just say who wins them. We're not even going to do the spread. Houston, Jacksonville. Interesting one there. Houston's 0-2 on a short week. Really need a win, but that O-line really struggles. Jacksonville 1-1. Which way would you lean there? Because I think whoever wins this game probably has to be Indy's kind of toughest competition in the division.
Yeah, I think I would lean Houston in this game because I just don't trust anything Jacksonville does. But I don't really trust Houston either. Their offensive line's in shambles. But I think I'll take Houston in that one. I don't think either of these teams is that good, though.
On Jacksonville there, but I'm a Houston hater at this point. I'm so anti-Houston. I'm not even betting on Jacksonville. I'm betting against Houston. A couple interesting ones with random quarterbacks. Let's start with this one. This is the fun one. Bengals at Vikings. Who would have thought that Carson Wentz, in his 6th year starting for his 6th NFL team, would be a 3-point favorite in his first start back here in Minnesota? Is there any chance Kevin O'Connell finds anything in Carson Wentz and extrapolates any sort of potential value that he has left in his body?
Man, can you imagine a Sam Darnold type year from last year out of Carson Wentz now with Kevin O'Connell? And
so funny.
I love Kevin O'Connell. I mean, how highly I think of Kevin O'Connell as a head coach, and how lowly I think of Zach Taylor as a head coach. And so when you look at that, like, you like the Vikings side of things, but also, and I mean, I'm not trying to hate on J.J. McCarthy. He's only played 2 games in his NFL career, but it did taper a little bit of my, like, Kevin O'Connell can do this with anybody thing, just seeing how bad J.J. McCarthy's looked through the first 2 weeks of his career. And I think Jake Browning is not great, but he's a backup quarterback that will give you a chance if he doesn't throw
6-4.
Yeah, if he doesn't throw 4 interceptions. Like, I saw somebody say that he can do a lot of the things Burrow can do, but he's just going to throw it into coverage. He's just going to sling it into tight coverage a lot too. And so if that doesn't bite you, you'll be good. So I would lean the Bengals here, but it's got a lot more to do with just, I don't trust Carson Wentz, and I have a little bit of a trust in Jake Browning.
I was talking about this with some Eagles fan friends, and this is just an Eagles fan conversation, but at this point, we can't root against Carson Wentz. We've had too much success. He did help us in 2017. We won the Super Bowl. We got to a Super Bowl. He's had such a failure of a career post Philadelphia. I think if he had a fun year, even if it's not this year or whatever, if he had a fun run, I think Philadelphia would be I think they'd be annoyingly negative about it. But I think I'd be happy for him. I think not that he's a great guy who I'm rooting for, anything like that, but it's been a rough go for Carson Wentz after a pretty historically great start to his career that we all enjoyed here. It would be cool to see. It'd be a cool redemption story.
Yeah, I'm pulling for the guy. I mean, I never even as things came out about him kind of forcing his way out and the way that was all handled, I never hated the guy. Like, I had some negative feelings just about how the whole thing ultimately played down, but I was also angry about the Jalen Hurts pick the season before. And, you know, I was a pretty big Carson Wentz defender, and in the receiving core that he had to work with and a lot of those things and the mess that 2020 was just start to finish. But, you know, pretty much once he was out the door, I just kind of wished him the best, and it hasn't worked out for him, and he's just continually been injured. And I think he's a guy that you could just see, like, he had really bad injury luck, and there's some things that have come out since that were maybe some fundamental leadership flaws in a locker room, but he had bad injury luck early on in his career, and it just crushed him. And so I would love to see him kind of have a bit of a resurgence, as long as it doesn't cost the Eagles anything in the playoffs. I'm all for it. So give me the Sam Darnold year last year for Wentz. I would love to see it.
Yeah, that'd be so fun. It would add another, like, will they, won't they with JJ, or
oh my gosh,
back up again for another conversation. And they picked the guy who, like, wouldn't do anything.
He better do it fast, because JJ's not out long term. So
I think it's a little.
Wasn't his a high ankle sprain?
Yeah, I think they said 2 to 4 weeks.
Yeah,
so he would have to, like, tear it up and be.
He better have a Sam Darnold month, and I don't mean the last month of the season last year.
That's definitely for sure. And then, speaking of another backup quarterback, the Las Vegas Raiders at the Washington Commanders. Marcus Mariota favored by 3 here. I know it looked ugly for the Raiders. I'm going to get to I'm going to let Shane go in a little bit here so I don't hold him for too long, way too early over there. He's an hour behind, folks. The East Coast people. It's early here at 9:15. I made Shane get up at like 8 a.m. or before that. So.
Yeah, well, a little earlier. I had to get the coffee ready, get the computer booted up.
Exactly.
Work through the microphone issues. It's good stuff.
I will give a little sneak peek to my card. I am on the Raiders this week. And I get it was ugly on Monday night. But they still kind of was it Monday night or Sunday night?
It was Monday night.
Monday night.
Chargers Raiders Monday night.
Yeah. So it was Monday night, and they still hung in the game despite Geno playing the worst game we've ever seen him play. Like, they only gave up 20 points. That defense is supposed to be talent deficient, and through 2 weeks they've given up 13, 20 points. Like, I think that coaching staff is just always going to have them in games. And when it's Marcus Mariota quarterbacking, I like the Raiders to win the game. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, the Commanders are just in a weird spot. Like, they're so banged up, and it all stems from their last game. Like, Austin Eckler on IR, out for the year. Dietrich Wise on IR. Jonathan Jones goes on IR. Jaden Daniels out for this game. Noah Brown out for this game. John Bates out for this game. And so they're tremendously banged up. I have a really bad taste in my mouth about the Raiders right now through 2 weeks. And some of that is anchored to drafting Ashton Genty #1 in my fantasy league, which is why I don't like fantasy football, because it makes me feel things that aren't necessarily just totally football based. But the Raiders, you know, you have to feel like their O-line's been a train wreck. And I don't know if they figured that out necessarily, but you do feel like Chip Kelly is going to get some things rolling offensively. I still think Geno is... I don't know how to talk about Geno, because if I say he's overrated, people are going to think, well, everybody says he's like not a very good quarterback. Film guys overrate Geno. The general public underrates Geno. He's a fine quarterback. And I just think they've got a lot of weapons. Is Brock Bowers back for them this week?
Yeah, I've said this before with on Chalk Talk, where Chalk Talk is the official podcast of Geno centrists.
Yes.
We are the only people in the country who are not weird about Geno Smith. He's good. He's pretty good. He's fine. And he can be bad sometimes, but he's fine.
We're the libertarians of the Geno Smith discussion.
We are directly smack dab in the middle on Geno Smith. But you're right. They make it on Heed the Call. They call it the football cognoscenti. They like to act like Geno's a top 10 guy.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there was a card show a couple months ago where I met Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and a lot of those Eagles and Foles, where I did a broadcast. It was the day Geno was traded to the Raiders. And I was like, we were going through the list of quarterbacks, and I was saying who I think Geno's better than. And I named Kyler. And the crowd acted like I said Patrick Mahomes. They were like, no, Geno's not better than Kyler. And I was like, I don't know. So people on both sides are weird about Geno. You're right.
Yeah.
And I'm sure last week's game will only go further to make that divide further.
Yeah, you're brave saying something like that in front of a bunch of Cards fans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't Cardinals fans. It was
gotcha. Okay.
like collectible cards.
Okay.
But I just happened to, the Cards fans were Cardinals fans, apparently.
Yeah.
But let's go to the next one. Let's talk about an ugly game. I didn't bet this one. Steelers Patriots. Which way do you lean here? I feel like I'm walking out of week 2. These were both teams that I kind of considered as like potential wild card teams.
Mm-hmm.
I feel worse about both teams, even though they're 1-1. They're not 0-2. I shouldn't feel terrible, I guess. I feel worse about both teams today than I did going into the season.
Yeah. And, if you look at the Steelers, just a really bizarre way to lose that game last week with the touchdown allowed on the kickoff return where Caleb Johnson just didn't realize he has to field the ball and kneel it in the end zone. I don't know. It was super weird. Their offense didn't look impressive. Aaron Rodgers is not pushing the ball downfield, but he's also not. I would say Rodgers hasn't looked as bad as he did in New York, but he hasn't looked like the Rodgers of old, and I'm just not sure that's there. The more concerning thing to me is the Steelers defense, which has been so good for so long and has just not been as good this season. That said, I like Drake May a lot. I just think the Patriots still don't have a lot of weapons. You got Christian Gonzalez is maybe coming back for this game. He's awesome if he could just stay healthy. He might have the J.C. Horn career arc where it's like, man, I think he's really good. He just never plays, so I'm not sure. So that Christian Gonzalez DK Metcalf matchup is going to be huge, assuming Christian Gonzalez is going to play. And that one probably decides the game ultimately. But I'll take the Steelers in this one.
And then our last 3 here, the 4:00 games, Denver at the Chargers. This line bumped up to 3. I got it at 2.5 early. You know how I feel about Denver. I think there's a lot of regression coming to the mean there, especially when they play good quarterback play like Justin Herbert. But I didn't counter in that maybe they'd give up 29 points and 1 billion yards to Daniel Jones and the Colts. So here they are at 1-1. I know it's kind of a chalky play. The Chargers are 2-0. Everybody's picking them as kind of the team that now is elevating into that top tier. I like the Chargers to handle business here. Chargers -2.5. And I think I know where you're going to go, but I guess my bigger question to you is, we both considered the Chargers a contender this offseason, and then Rashawn Slater got hurt. And we both kind of thought that's it for contendership. Is it possible? And by the way, the O-line's been a problem. Like, even with the 2-0 start, even with 2 really impressive wins, the problem on the team is the offensive line, especially in run blocking. They're really not blocking for the run well. And is it possible that this is, but even with that O-line struggles, we've heard people elevating them with the Ravens and Bills. Is it possible we overreacted and they can get to that level with the Ravens and the Bills? Or are these offensive line problems we've seen early kind of, even though they are 2-0, the reason that we kind of axed them anyway?
Yeah, I think it's hard to really suss that out right now. Obviously 2-0, and we both really liked him, and just the concern was with Slater going, because that was going to be such a big part of their identity as a team, is just having this awesome, offensive line. And Joe Alt has lived up to that. I mean, Joe Alt's been really good this season. He's allowed 1 pressure through 2 games, which is just kind of insane when you think about it. But you look at the, Trey Pipkins, we've kind of known Trey Pipkins struggles a bit. That's why they've tried to, build around that offensive line. And I just think it's funny that they come in to the season after spending not the number 1 overall pick, their first round draft pick on a running back. And they have the highest pass rate over expectation in the NFL right now at plus 12%. They're playing like 2020 football when nobody knew how to stop the pass before teams started going to split field coverages again all the time. And I think they're going to continue to air it out. And, the Broncos have probably the best corner in the league, but they don't have 2 or 3 of them. And so I feel pretty good about the Chargers in this one. And with the Broncos, I started to have doubts about my initial position on Bo Nix, who I did not like coming out in the draft. And I thought after his rookie season, like, man, maybe I was wrong on that. He's kind of proved me wrong. And it just hasn't been that great this year. But the real thing is that their defense also hasn't been what I expected. I expected their defense to be really good like they were last year. And so I think the Broncos might be in for a bit of a rougher season, and I think the Chargers move to 3-0.
Bo Nick's stat that you'll like this. The Broncos are throwing at a 57% clip, which is actually a little bit above league average this year. But they're averaging just 5.5 yards per attempt, which ranks 25th in the NFL. So to pass them that much and still averaging that low of a yard per attempt number is yikes. And the Chargers also forced like the most checkdowns in the sport. Apparently, they're the top graded team in coverage so far through 2 weeks. So Jesse Minter, future head coach, I think it appears. It looks like that DC is going to be a rising star this year. And then our two more, Dallas, Chicago. Give me rapid fire.
Dallas, Chicago, gross. I guess I'll take Dallas because I trust their quarterback a lot more, but gross.
I'm taking Chicago because nobody wants to take Chicago. Everybody wants to bet Dallas, and Vegas still has this as basically a pick 'em. So I'm going with Chicago. Arizona at San Fran. We'll finish it off on that. This game, interesting. And Shane said something that made me think a little bit on Chalk Talk this week. You said at this point, Mac Jones is just a very good backup quarterback. I'm riding with him. I'm riding with Mac. I'm taking the 49ers here.
Yeah, we finally have the pairing that Kyle Shanahan wanted all along. And what draft was that? 2019? Was it the 2019 draft?
Yeah, either 2019 or 2020. It's 2019, I think.
Something like that.
Herbert was 2020. Yeah, 2019.
2021. It was 21. I don't know. Anyways, whatever year it was.
You're right. I think you're right.
Kyle Shanahan wanted Mac Jones. The whole league shamed him out of drafting Mac Jones after trading multiple first-round picks. And it turns out, not because Mac Jones has been great, but because of what happened to Trey Lance, maybe he should have just taken Mac Jones. And they're finally teamed up. I didn't think Mac was great last week, but yeah, I trust the 49ers more than I do the Cardinals in this spot. And I would take I'd take the 49ers in this one.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. But Shane, I'm sure we're going to have you on here plenty on Saturday morning spread. And I'll see you again on Monday to review everything we just talked about on Chalk Talk. Thanks so much for coming on.
All right, sounds good. I'll catch you later, Mark.
That is Shane Haff. You can follow him on Twitter at Shane Haff NFL to check out everything he's got going on there. Follow the Patreon with Johnny Page and check out everything going on at Eagles Pin Pull. And I got people yelling at me for the college football card. We got Bagel of Truth, long time Mark and Philly rider. Bagel of Truth, great Twitter name. Always yells at me on Saturday mornings for the cards. I used to wait until 11:30 to tweet it out, so he's got to chill. It's 9:30. The card's out. I just tweeted it out there. For anybody who missed it, TCU -6.5 against SMU for 2 units. Arkansas -6.5 at Memphis for 2 units. Utah -3 versus Texas Tech for 2 units. Notre Dame -24.5 against Purdue for 1 unit. NC State +3 at Duke for 1 unit. Over 59.5 Arizona State Baylor for 3 units. Over 54.5 Michigan State USC is the best bet at 11 o'clock for 5 units. Let's get to the NFL talk about all the things, some of which we just talked about with Shane, some of which we did not. I did have a teaser that I tweeted out on Thursday. It was a Bills-Packers Seahawks 10-point teaser, -125. So I now have basically Packers and Seahawks money lines. So if you're out there, you want to take that, you can probably do like a 6-point teaser, get the Packers down to -1.5, -2, get the Seahawks down to -1.5, -2. And I would take that as well. So maybe a Packers-Seahawks 2-team teaser. And let's start with the Packers. The Packers -7.5 at the Cleveland Browns. Matt LaFleur dominates the early part of the season. He's 17-6 against the spread in September, including 8-1 against the spread in true road games. No head coach is better at covering early in the season than LaFleur. The Packers are 17-3 against the spread within their first 3 games of the season since 2019, which is by far the best of any team in the NFL in that stretch. LaFleur has closed as a favorite of 6 points or more 28 times as a coach of the Packers. His teams are 25-3 straight up and 16-12 against the spread. Jags money line against the Houston Texans for 2 units. My next bet. When CJ Stroud starts a toss-up game on the road, which is a road game with a spread of 4 or less in either direction, could be favored by 4 or less, could be an underdog of 4 or less. He is 4-8 against the spread, which is the least profitable quarterback in that spot since he was drafted. Through 2 games, the Jaguars defense has 6 total takeaways, the most in the NFL. The Jaguars played 10 total games last season where their defense didn't force a single turnover, the most in the NFL. I think Jags defense was really bad last year. I think part of it was just not forcing any turnovers. You flip that around, you start forcing turnovers, really, really flips around what happens on that defense. Give me the Falcons -5 at the Carolina Panthers. Carolina ranks 8th worst in rushing DVOA on defense. You got Bijan Robinson to run all over you. And by the way, they also rank 8th worst in coverage. So it's not like they're any better against the pass. But I think being bad against the run, especially against Atlanta, is a big problem against what I think may now be the best running back in the NFL in Bijan Robinson. Jalen Hurts touchdown. It's the best bet in sports. You know the numbers. You know the stats. I'll give them again to you next week. Give me Jalen Hurts touchdown. I'm not going to run down all the numbers on it. Give me the Raiders +3.5 at the Washington Commanders for 1 unit. Marcus Mariota is 11-20-2 against the spread as a favorite and in his career as a starter. And then also Dan Quinn does not perform well with expectations either. In his career, he is 28-39 against the spread as a favorite. And last week, I said this with Shane, but even with Geno playing his worst game as a pro and giving the Raiders plenty of short fields to work with on defense, the Raiders hung in the game and only allowed 20 points. I thought the problem with this team would be the defense. And it's been the O-line, not the defense. And it was Geno last week, in partially the O-line, partially Geno. But the Raiders hung in the game and only allowed 20 points to a really, really good Chargers offense. I think the fact that they had the back door open for a cover in that game with Geno playing horrible says a lot about the rest of the Raiders team. So give me the Raiders to cover the number in Washington. The L.A. Chargers -2.5 against the Denver Broncos. The Chargers have beaten the Broncos both straight up and against the spread in both of the Harbaugh-Sean Payton meetings. Knicks is 1-5 against the spread and straight up in his last 6. Harbaugh is 9-0-1 against the spread against the AFC West. I think that's a pretty damn good number. The Broncos are actually throwing at a 57% clip, right above league average, averaging 5.5 yards per attempt, forced a ton of checkdowns. They entered as the top-graded team in coverage. We talked about all that with Shane, but the Chargers are my favorite non-Jalen Hurts bet of the NFL slate at 4 units. At 425, maybe my second favorite non-Jalen Hurts bet, the San Francisco 49ers -2 against the Arizona Cardinals for 3 units. As a starter for the Cardinals, Kyler is 8-20 against the NFC West. 49ers have the opportunity to start 3-0 against the spread with a cover versus Arizona this week. San Fran hasn't started 3-0 against the spread since 2009. They're only 3-0 against the spread start over the last 40 years. It happens again 16 years later in 2025. And I also like the Bears +1.5 against the Cowboys. I get people are going to hear that and be like, how do you like the Bears? I like it because you're hearing that and saying, how do you like the Bears? Everybody likes the Cowboys. Yeah, it's basically a pick 'em. And by the way, Cowboys made Russell Wilson look like the best quarterback in the NFL. Let's talk about the rest of the games that I did not bet on. There's 4 1 o'clock games I did not have a bet on, and I did not bet on either of the night games. At 1 o'clock, I lean Cincinnati +3 at Minnesota for the same reasons Shane said. I kind of trust Jake Browning, who's 6-4 as a starter. I lean with the Steelers -1.5 at New England. I just think New England's too far away talent-wise. And I started feeling that as we were heading towards the season, and I feel like I've only been backed up by that throughout the start of this season. The New York Jets at Tampa Bay Bucks. Bucks are -6.5. You should not bet this game. I'm going to have one game every week. That's my do not bet this game of the week. Jets-Bucks is my do not bet this game of the week. You can't bet on Tyrod, and you can't bet on the Bucks laying all these points when the whole offensive line is out. So I'm not touching this game on either side of the ball. Indianapolis at Tennessee. Give me the Colts -4.5 if I was going to take a leaner. If you're in a pool where you have to pick every game, give me the Colts. I think the Titans are a bad team. I think this Colts defense might be built to beat up on bad quarterbacks. Sunday Night Football, Chiefs at Giants. Chiefs are going to win, but I would probably lean the Giants to cover. I would expect this to probably just be like an annoying 20-17 game, and the Chiefs win somehow. Monday Night Football, Lions at Ravens. I would actually lean with the Baltimore Ravens here. I would lean with Baltimore to get the job done and to finish it off. So to wrap up my card, to run down my card, give me the Packers -7.5 at the Cleveland Browns. Give me the Jags money line against the Houston Texans. Give me the Falcons -5 at the Carolina Panthers. Give me the Raiders +3.5 at the Washington Commanders. Give me Jalen Hurts touchdown. Give me Chargers -2.5 against the Broncos. 49ers -2.5 against the Cardinals. Bears +1.5 against the Cowboys. And then that 3-team teaser. Got one down with the Bills. We got the Packers and the Seahawks. You want to go with the 2-team teaser? Be my guest. And that is going to do it for episode 1 of Saturday Morning Spread right here on the Eagles Pinpool Network. We'll be back next week right here Saturday at 8 a.m. But for now, EPPN Nation,